let me share my screen, go over what we're going to be doing today. Come on, get big. All right, so please open poll everywhere. And please, some of you still, you do not have to register, but I do need you to put in your last name, your whole last name, and your first initial, okay? Then we'll have some poll questions, we'll have current events, and we'll talk about food allergies and intolerances. I sent out and posted some discussion questions because we'll go into breakout rooms. I want to make sure you understand the concepts between allergies and intolerances. I want to hear your experiences with food allergies and intolerances or people that you know that have them. I won't be having office hours after class day. I'll be here for like 20 minutes if anybody has any questions, but I'm going to Bentley to learn how to teach alone in a classroom. I want to get out of my house just for something different, but I won't be with students. I'm not going to be teaching students, but I have to get screened. So I will be getting my COVID test today. And then next class, we'll start green nutrition. I'm going to try to record it in the next few days, but I will have slides posted, but I'm going to try to make a recording of it because I'm a recording machine these days. And my picture, penguins, South Georgia in near Antarctica, once upon a time. Okay. Are you ready for poll questions? Are you having trouble getting, okay, let's roll, yeah. 24. Right, oops. And then my mouse disappears, okay. Food intolerances involve, whoops, wait a second. Food intolerances involve the release of histamine in the presence of an allergen. Food intolerances involve the release of histamine in the presence of an allergen. True or false? Three, two, one. Okay. All right, why is this false?
Because it's food allergies, not food intolerances.
Right. It's a food allergy that involves histamine release. We have food allergies and we have food intolerances. This is what we'll be talking. These are two different things. They both involve the body reacting to something that is normally considered harmless, but one of them involves antibodies and histamine. Food allergies is an immune system response. The body looks at this allergen as something that's generating an allergic response. It involves antibodies, histamine, and in the worst case scenario, somebody may go into anaphylactic shock. A food intolerance, while it may involve other symptoms, primarily involves the digestive tract and issues with digestion. And we'll talk about lactose intolerance. In the video, I talked about lactose intolerance and gluten intolerance. So yeah, a food allergy and a food intolerance are very different. You should know the difference. Which of the following is not part of an allergic response? Blood vessel dilation, good, Leanne, drop in blood pressure, inability to produce lactase, or hives, which is not part of the allergic response. Three, two, one. Okay, so I sort of might have given some advice. So blood vessel dilation, drop in blood pressure, and hives are part of an allergic response. They're related to histamine. They're related to other parts of the immune system. Lactase is related to what? An inability to produce lactase is related to what?
Lactose intolerance.
Lactose intolerance, right. So whatever is going on, the amount of lactose a person is, and what's lactose? Anyone? Anyone? Jackie, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Right. I can't see everybody. What's, I forgot my question already. Somebody listening to me?
I believe you asked what is lactose, but I don't want to give the wrong answer.
Oh, go ahead. It's all right. Now's the time to give the wrong answer.
When I hear lactose, I think of milk, but
Okay. Anybody? Phone a friend?
Is it the animal form of CHO? That's
So CHO is a carbohydrate. Carbohydrate covers a lot of things. Lactose is a carbohydrate.
It's the sugar.
It's the sugar, right?
Oh, we have feedback. Do you have somebody at your table who's taking the class as well? Oh, who's here? I know Marissa and Kat, who are you?
Abby.
Oh. Hi. Okay. So lactose is a disaccharide that's found in dairy. And lactase is the enzyme that breaks down lactose into glucose and galactose that the body can digest it. And I don't know if I have poll questions to go into more detail, but what happens if a person doesn't have adequate lactase to cover the amount of lactose they're consuming because they have a lactose intolerance? What happens to that disaccharide? I have my list. Justin, are you here today?
Yeah, I am.
What
So
happened?
if you don't have the lactase enzyme to digest the lactose, then you just can't digest the lactose. So your body has, well, okay, so I know you can't digest the lactose, but I don't know why your body has like such a strong response to that, because you can't digest fiber, but like your body isn't there.
I see a hand. Yes, and you're with Alejandra?
Yes.
Yes.
So what happens is that you don't have the enzyme to digest the lactose, but if you can take a lactate, which is the enzyme. You have to take it before, and that's it.
That will help somebody. But the reason why there's discomfort associated with it is because as the lactose moves through the small intestine and into the large intestine, it pulls water with it. And that pulling of water is what causes the gas, the bloating, the discomfort. And yes, that also happens with fiber. If somebody's eating a lot of fiber and their body isn't used to it, then they will have similar symptoms. So that's a good observation. But there's no pills we have because we can't simulate the enzyme, nor do we really want to. We want to eat fiber correctly and from the right sources. So we have the ability to handle fiber. What am I trying to say? When I've worked with folks who wanted to increase their dietary fiber, I tell somebody, and I probably will say this again when we get to the information in module 3, that I would work with someone and I would recommend increasing 5 grams over a month, like every day for a month, so that your body could get used to it. Because if the average, I think, American eats maybe 11 grams of fiber a day. And the recommendation is, I think for women, 25, and for men, 38 grams a day. You don't need to know that for class, but it's something that you're asked in your diet projects and what your fiber intake is. So if somebody has a really low fiber diet, because the body needs to adjust to consuming increased fiber so you don't have that discomfort, it's like if you're only eating 8 grams of fiber a day, then like kind of go up to 13 and do that for a month, and then slowly increase it so that you don't have the discomfort associated with it. But I think does that answer your question, Justin?
Yeah, it does. But I have another question actually, kind of based
Okay.
some of that, not to like get us too off track, but can you become lactose tolerant? Because over the summer I ate a lot of whey protein, which has lactose in it, and like over time my body got like adjusted to it. That's like an anecdote, but
Class dismissed. that's an anecdote, but that's your story. I mean, apparently the answer is yes, right? So in your case, are you lactose intolerant? Is that what you're?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I used to be like heavily lactose intolerant, but by the end of the summer, like I could drink like a lot of milk and I was like totally fine. So I was like, I wasn't sure if there was a reason.
Well, apparently, yes, your body, it's an enzyme that the body uses and produces if the body's using it, or doesn't produce it if you're not using it, which is why if somebody doesn't have dairy for a long time, they may have trouble digesting dairy once they start again. But if their body's able to make lactose or lactase, remember that's ASE ending is the enzyme that you can make it. Sometimes if you've had a really bad intestinal bug, you may have trouble digesting dairy for a while because your stomach was insulted and doesn't take insults well. Okay, any other questions? All right, let's see what we have next. Oops. Oh, here we go. Let me explain. What was the question here? So we have a food allergen, a substance that's normally harmless, but for some reason it's generating an allergic response. So for some reason, the immune system is looking at this food substance, usually a protein on the surface of the food, as harmful, or what I call non-self, and that stimulates the immune reaction. Part of that immune response is producing antibodies. These are proteins that are part of the immune system, and they're formed the first time you're exposed to that allergen. And then they're produced in larger amounts on subsequent exposure. And what they do is they bind with mast cells, which are a cell in the body that's part of creating an immune response, and histamine is released. A localized reaction to a food allergen can result in anaphylactic shock. True or false? A localized reaction to a food allergen can result in anaphylactic shock. Three, oops, find my mouse. 2, okay, keep going because I lost my mouse on my screen. 1. I have a pit bull coming in here. Okay, we need to talk. Hi, Lila.
Professor, what does a localized reaction mean?
Good, let's talk. A localized, okay, let me do that first. A localized reaction means it's like on your hand or on your arm or on your leg. Like somebody, if you have a reaction to mosquitoes, where you get bitten by a mosquito, you have that histamine release and you have a local reaction. Like I'm allergic to bees or wasps, and I've only ever had a local reaction to where I was stung. That hopefully means I'll never have a systemic reaction. Anaphylaxis is a system-wide reaction. So anybody know anyone who has food allergies who has not gone into anaphylactic shock? I mean, what their reactions might be? You'll
My
have to call out.
cousin, oh,
Yeah.
okay. My cousin was allergic to peanuts for a long time when he was younger. And then he went out of it. So it was kind of cool to see that in the notes. But yeah, he never went into anaphylactic shock, and he was just like tried to avoid them, or we just use his EpiPen whenever he like did have it on accident.
But he grew out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, let's study that guy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So what reactions, and those of you that have the food allergies, when you write about your experience eating the food, or consuming your allergen, it can range from a localized reaction, which can be, you break out in hives, or you can have a stomach ache or something like that. You do the research, or it can be as extreme as anaphylaxis. So it can run the range, but localized means not throughout the body. Anaphylactic shock or anaphylaxis is system-wide, and it's due to a massive release of histamine, a drop in blood pressure, and that can, in the worst case scenario, lead to death. And it's counteracted if it's soon enough by an EpiPen, because an EpiPen has epinephrine or adrenaline, and that counters the histamine. For folks who don't have severe reactions to histamine, what can you take? Like if you're breaking out in hives, what do people take? Yeah. Benadryl, because why?
Reduces the
Because it's anti-histamine.
Antihistamine.
Right, it's an antihistamine. Excuse me, I have to pet a dog. This is why I have to go teach somewhere else sometimes. Hello, puppy. Focus. Okay. So anaphylactic shock is a massive systemic reaction or system-wide reaction in which there's reduced oxygen to the heart and other tissues due to reaction of this substance or allergen that, for whatever reason, it could be genetics, it could be just because it happens, that person, the immune system is recognizing this as a non-self substance and mounting an immune response. Oh, and. Other sites for allergic reactions that can be localized, but very uncomfortable: the digestive tract, the mouth. You can develop sensitivity, itching, swelling. Airways can become congested. Skin is where you get hives. So that's where the localized reactions can occur. Oh, here we go. The tongue can swell, your lips might itch. I know people that there's certain like fruits, they have issues with peaches or apples because there's proteins on the skin of that fruit that causes that localized reaction. They have it to the fresh fruit, but not the cooked fruit because the heat kills the protein. Heat denatures or breaks down protein. The airways can cause breathing or wheezing, breathing issues or wheezing in the GI tract or digestive tract. These aren't nothing, but they're not anaphylaxis. Okay. So my question is, do you?
I have a question.
Sure.
When I was little, I used to be allergic to a bunch of foods, like most of like the main ones, but then also one time I had a reaction to tilapia, but that was when I was like very, very little. Do you know if now they have a test allergy to like specific fish? Because when I was little, they didn't have, so they were like, just don't eat anything.
I don't know. The resource that I have posted for the assignment for this might have resources for that.
Okay.
So yeah, I know. I bet your family was very happy that you grew out of that.
Yeah, but I still don't eat fish because they were never able to tell me if I was actually allergic to it or not, like tilapia specifically. They were like, just stay away from all fish. The other allergies I was able to get tested and tested negative after when I grew out of them, but I just stopped eating fish.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes people grow out of allergies, food allergies in particular, because it may be due to an immature digestive tract. It may have really not a lot to do with the immune system, just your digestive tract hasn't matured. So that might be one of the reasons, but that's why there's a National Institute of Allergy and Asthma studying these things. All right, so do you know anybody, whoops, it's locked, so that doesn't help. Does anybody know folks who aren't eating gluten? Question. Yeah. You raising a hand or you just?
No, don't worry, no question.
Okay. I won't worry. All right. So my next question is, in 1 or 2 words, why? And celiac is certainly why they shouldn't be, but what are some other reasons why people might not be eating gluten?
Professor, the answer, like to enter a response, it's locked.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And that should be the only thing on the screen. I mean, on my screen. However, sensitivity, still working on that one. Thank you for putting healthy in quotes. All right, I'm gonna, whoops, try to lock this so I can look at some of these. Let's see. All right, so celiac is what the main answer should be. I'm still trying to find out more about gluten sensitivity. Media, bloating. One of the things I have my health and disease class read when we talk about food issues or eating disorders is, have we pathologized feeling full? Is there a difference in some people between feeling full and being bloated? And what's wrong with being bloated for a while after you eat, because that's part of your body's response. It's a healthy response to digesting food. But is it because the media is telling us that anything that makes our stomach feel full is wrong? Diagnosed, okay, trend. So tell me about the trend of not eating gluten. What's the trend? For those of you that know folks that aren't eating it because it's trendy. Yeah, Justin.
So I know a lot of people view it as something unhealthy because it's like such a trend to not eat it. So a lot of people think that it's kind of like organic. Like if you choose to refrain from gluten, then it will absolutely benefit you.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that that's kind of like not really true. But I know that's what people believe.
I know. Well, it's called the appeal to celebrity because it's very fashionable, like you're saying. What I like to tell people is a 400-calorie gluten-free brownie is still 400 calories. There's nothing magical about it. It's more expensive. All these products have made life a little bit easier for folks who do have gluten intolerance, though. Okay.
I actually have a question too.
Sure.
So you know those tests that you can take? I don't know if you like swab your mouth or something and you submit it and it's supposed to tell you your food intolerances, sensitivities, and all of that. Do you think that's accurate or no? Because I know people that don't have gluten because they've taken that test and it just tells them that, but I don't know how accurate that is.
So one of the things that I think I talked about in the video is that sometimes, well, these measure antibodies, and the antibody there are different types of antibodies, which means immunoglobulin. There's a whole bunch of, there's IgA, IgG, IgM. The one that your body should produce in response to an allergy. Now, not gluten, that's different. There are antibodies that are produced because the body is reacting to gluten, but is IgE. But what happens is these bogus tests and unethical places that are administering them, and that's what I'm talking about. I don't know if the place you're talking about is ethical or not. I don't think anything you put in the mail to be tested for biological reasons is ethical, is IgG. And IgG just means you've been exposed. But if you get a test result and you are vulnerable because you haven't been feeling well, and that test result says you have high levels of IgG in response to A, B, C, D, E, you're going to say, finally, I have a reason. And you're going to stop eating it. And the thing is that that's not the reason. You want to look for IgE. You want those people, and they're not going to tell you because you have to have a degree, you have to work in a responsible lab, you have to be an allergist, an allergy doctor to be able to administer the right tests. So I wouldn't put a swab and put in the mail. If you have other information and they are reputable, send it to me and I'll change what I say. Like I keep saying, that's how science works. Show me the data, and if it's correct, I'll change what I say. But right now, there are a lot of people out there getting bogus test results and thinking that they're sick when they're not.
Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
So why is it for COVID, for example, in Miami, they're doing the IgG test and IgE test?
Okay.
So what would be they were saying that if you had the IgE, it will tell you if you had the coronavirus active, and then the IgG would tell you if you already had it, basically if you already had the antibodies. But if the IgE is only for food allergies.
So what they're measuring is IgM and IgG. Yeah, and one of them means that you have an active case, and one of them are the antibodies. I'm actually talking about this in my health and disease class right now. I usually wait till after the first exam, but you know, pandemic. But IgM are the antibodies that show that you've recovered, and these are the cells that are protective.
So why are they saying that there could be false positives if they're testing for it?
I don't know. I don't know. There are always false positives and false negatives. That's referred to, and I don't know a lot of statistics except for relative and absolute risk is what I pay attention to. But there's something called specificity and sensitivity, and those are things. If something is sensitive or specific, it has to do with the numbers of false positives and false negatives being high or low. So, that's what you want to know about the test. And that's why I get concerned when there are tests being released and, if they haven't been tested, if you don't know the sensitivity and specificity, you're going to have a lot of false positives and false negatives.
Great, thank you.
No, thank you for asking. Oh, celiac disease is the inability to digest wheat protein due to the lack of a specific protease or protein enzyme involved in digestion. That's a long question. But so we're saying that this gluten intolerance or celiac is because you can't digest wheat protein because you don't have the right enzymes. True or false? Five.
I can't answer the poll. I don't know if anyone else is having trouble.
Is anyone else having trouble? I'm sorry.
No worries.
Maybe refresh your page. Maybe that might work.
Did that help?
No, it's okay. It'll probably work the next time.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Oh, good. Let's talk. Celiac, let's see. Let me see what my next slide is first, because let me see what I got. Oh, okay, I don't. Celiac disease is not due to a lack of an enzyme, right? Which intolerance is due to an enzyme deficiency?
Lactose intolerance.
Right, lactose intolerance. Celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, which means for some reason your immune system is recognizing a normally harmless protein, in this case gluten, and the immune response that's being mounted is inflammation, right? It's not an inability to digest it because of an enzyme. It has nothing to do with enzymes. It has to do with the fact that the immune system is responding to this gluten protein molecule with an inflammatory response. And in the video, I showed you what was supposed to be a normal cell with lots of villi and microvilli, and I'll talk more about that when we talk about the digestive tract, and then one that has been exposed, if you will, to gluten. And what happens is, as a result of inflammation, the villi, which are there to increase the surface area for nutrient absorption, digestion and absorption, is destroyed. And so you can't digest nutrients. Your body can't absorb adequate nutrients. So that's what causes it. It's an inflammatory response to something as an autoimmune disease, that the body sees this molecule as non-self and therefore responds in that way. And the treatment is to eliminate gluten. When you eliminate gluten, then the cells have a chance to regenerate, and the person can digest food. This is maybe one of the very few times where something in food can be considered a toxin, because it's having an actual toxic response. The body's having a toxic response to this molecule. Now, the thing is, not everybody feels the reaction the same. I had a student who had celiac disease, and she never felt sick. And she realized, it turned out she had a massive iron deficiency. She was deficient in other nutrients because her body wasn't able to absorb it, because the cilia in her digestive tract had been destroyed. And I remember she said she was angry because at least if she felt sick, she knew that something was wrong, but she never felt sick. So I thought that was kind of interesting. let me go over, well, I'm showing this to you because this is the assignment that's due. I think I have it on the slide here, but I have your pictures covering it. In October 13th, I made a short video with the instructions on it. And in the video, I ask you to tell me what it's like when you're with friends, when you're out, and it's different due to COVID. So you can make things up if you want, what it might have been like. If you are somebody who is going to restaurants, who eats outside, I'm told that the servers are supposed to routinely offer you information on food allergies and provide you with it, because something you would do if you had a food allergy or food intolerance would be to talk to your server. Because I used to say, don't just let your server know you're doing this for a class, because I don't want them to stress out in case they forget something. I've had students who were servers in restaurants and they've told me that it's routine. I don't know. I just don't want to cause anybody any extra panic if I don't have to. So please listen to the video. What I do ask you to do is write this as a journal. Don't write it as I'm doing this as a class assignment. You could write it, for example, as I finally found out why I feel sick after I eat these foods. I finally got the results back, or something like that. Try to use that part of your brain that you may not get to use in other business courses, which is a bias on my part, because that's saying that I don't think business courses can be creative, but I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. All right, current events. I'm going to write these names down so I can remember who has it, and then let's have some current events. Pepe, what do you have for current events?
All right, so mine is about a new research that was conducted by the University of East Anglia that shows that vitamin C can help those over 50 to retain muscle mass later in life. So it shows that older people who eat a lot of vitamin C, so like citrus fruits, berries, vegetables, have the best skeletal muscle mass. They conducted this based off data of more than 13,000 people aged between 42 and 82. They did this by calculating their skeletal muscle mass and analyzed their vitamin C intakes from a week's food diary, so 7 days. And they also examined the amount of vitamin C in their blood.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty important research, because people tend to lose skeletal muscle mass as they get older. So they can get sarcopenia.
Yep.
I'm sure that's what it's, yeah. Frailty, physical disabilities, type 2 diabetes, and reduced quality of life. And actually, people over 50 lose up to 1% of their skeletal muscle mass each year. So vitamin C has been found to help defend the cells and tissues that make up the body from potentially harmful free radical substances.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I found.
So tell me, wow. So not protein? I shouldn't be eating my 1 bars? I should be eating...
Apparently just citrusy fruits.
Could you send me?
Berries count, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Because I am in that demographic. It may be too late for me, but I do like to eat. So were they differentiating between vitamin C from food and vitamin C from supplements?
They just kept talking about how it's just so easy to just receive that by eating citrus fruit, orange, and all that. Mm-hmm. They mentioned that they're not talking about mega doses, just eating 1 a day or having vegetables as a side dish is enough. This should be sufficient.
Yeah, well, it's what's called a water-soluble vitamin, and people tend to think if some is good, more is better, and you can't get too much. And Americans, at least, are said to have the most expensive urine in the world because they just keep popping supplements, thinking that it'll make everything better. All right, thank you. Christy.
Right, so I was actually watching Shark Tank for one of my classes, and a product that I came upon was called Ready Set Food. So I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but it's basically a powder that is tasteless, but it was mixed into baby food formula or just breast milk and given to the baby, and it included peanut, milk, and egg. And they did a clinical study that those are the 3 most common
I guess like allergens and like just kind of like things that would affect the quality of life if we think like cupcakes, pizza, like what kids are constantly surrounded by, like I guess at parties, at school. And so the clinical study said, I'm on the website now, that 80% of peanut, egg, and milk allergies can be prevented. And so I guess like you would give this powder to your baby at the ages like right when it's born to its 6 months while the immune system is still developing. And if they're introduced to those common allergens, then it would be like less likely for the baby to be allergic to those things like later on in life. So so it's like a way to prevent them. And I just thought it was really, I don't know, just tied in exactly to what we were talking about today.
Absolutely. Could you send me that? Because the only thing that I've read about, and granted, I'm not on top of the literature, was Bombas or the peanut. I mentioned it I talked about in the video that peanuts given, the peanut Bombas and that are like cheese doodles and melt in the mouth as like a powder given has been shown to reduce development. I haven't read about this powder. Are they giving it to everybody? Are they giving it in a controlled setting? Is it to kids who have a high risk?
It's only for infants when their immune system is developing. It's not like for later on. Like the sharks were asking them if they're developing a product. They said they're developing a product for older, like 3 to 4 year old kids. But no, this Ready Set food, this is only if you're under like 6 months old, like while your immune system is still developing.
And what data did they have? Or is this their proposal?
So they showed 3 clinical studies, and they went into more detail, and it said that 80% of the peanut, egg, and milk allergies, and it's supported by AAP and NIH and other national medical organizations. But then when I went on their website, they linked just the studies that they use, and they have like the doctors that back them up.
Yeah, I guess I want to know more about those doctors that back them up. Because I would think that if they're, well, again, I don't know the literature, but that Shark Tank wouldn't be the first place where something like this would be making.
Yeah, well, they said that they've already, when you go on Shark Tank, you obviously have to, well, not obviously, but like you have to have like previous sales, and they were doing very well, and they were in many pediatric offices, and they were getting really great responses. But right here, like it was a LEAP study, that's the name of it, but it said that 80% reduction in peanut allergies. So if you start at 4 months of age, and if you expose 6 grams of peanut protein per week, and then so they did over 600 children between 4 and 11 months of age at high risk for peanut allergy were randomized to either consume or avoid peanut until age 5 in order to compare the incidence of peanut allergy. So 80% of the kids were the peanut allergy was able to be prevented. I guess that's like one of their studies. And then there was another study, it was called the EAT study, and it was 67% reduction in peanut, egg, and milk allergies.
Okay, so when you said the LEAP study, that set off a red flag, but I don't know. I'm involved with a number of dietitian groups, and there's one that's an allergy group, and I don't know if LEAP or if it's another acronym that is a huge red flag. So that's why I made a note. I guess what my question is, and I'm not asking you, I mean, I'm asking, and that's why I want to look at this. Who was the control? Were these kids at risk of developing peanut allergies or any other allergies? Did they have eczema? Did they test them to see if they were at risk?
Yeah, these so it said 147 children between 4 and 5 months of age with atopic dermatitis, so they had eczema, were randomized to either consume or avoid, so this was for the egg part of it, for 6 months in order to determine if stepwise early allergen introduction is an effective method. And throughout the study, mothers did continue to breastfeed to keep it all the same. And then children in the egg consumption arm of the trial ate egg powder, while the placebo group avoided egg entirely. So that was kind of the basis of the study. So they did have that.
Okay, no, good. Yeah, I want to look at this, and then I want to see if I'm just reacting to the wrong thing, that if LEAP is legitimate, and I'm just like, my sounds too good to be true. It usually is. So
yeah, but it's basically like, I don't know, Mark Cuban was really impressed with it because his kids are allergic, and he's had many times where it's gotten very bad and they have gone into shock. And so he was like, I wish I had this to give to my children, but I'm not. I'll send you the link.
And that would be an anecdote. That's an anecdote, yeah. And anecdotes are very persuasive. Okay. Oh, very good. Ooh, I got excited. All right. Thank you. Jackie.
So ironically, I actually had the same thing. I sent you an email with the link to everything about ready, set, and
Yeah, I
food.
thought it
So
sounded. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay.
Christina actually had the same problem. We had to watch Tank, so I guess we watched the same episode. But I sent you the link with all the information. But that
Yeah,
was my current event for today.
So that's on me. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, cool. I don't know what to say.
Sorry.
No, I just need to read it because I haven't heard anything about it because, you know, I don't know. Okay, great. Izzy.
Hi.
Hi.
Mine is, I thought it was pretty funny. I was searching for something completely unrelated, but I found an article that says a new study shows that vegans are unhappy and sick more often. And it's, I mean, it's funny because it's like very biased. It says, I mean, it's insinuating that they have emotional problems because of a B12 deficiency. It says that they have a 150% higher rate of having a heart attack.
Mhm.
And they're like very susceptible to all types of diseases, and that people should be nice to vegans because they're all very sick. And the article was written by the Beef magazine.
There you
So,
go. I said
that's
right
all.
here who wrote it.
Yeah. But I just thought it was really funny.
Very good. Very good. This is a kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it's very biased.
And certainly people who have a B12 deficiency are at risk, but vegans who may have B12 deficiency may be at risk, but so are people who aren't vegans who have B12 deficiency. So, all right, very good. Let's see, where else am I? All right, let me share my screen again to see what I'm doing. Oh, so there were, let's see, this was from the Padlet. Tori, do you remember asking this? Did I answer this for you?
I remember asking the question. I don't know if I got an answer.
Well, what do you think?
So I think it goes back, I think we talked in the first class about like the placebo effect and stuff. So I think it depends on the kind of people. I know my mom's friend, she had cancer and she didn't want to get treated with what's it called? It's like a chemical. So she went the organic way, and she was trying to treat herself with foods and just being very cautious about what she was eating. And then she got healed. She got better, but I don't know if it was because of that. But I think it goes back to the placebo effect. And I don't know. I just thought it was a good answer because you do hear that sometimes, and I wanted to hear from you what you thought and more the scientific part of it.
If you have cancer, and did she have any surgery?
No.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know her medical condition. I don't know who her doctors are. Diet doesn't cure cancer.
Yeah.
So, but she felt she was taking care of herself. And again, I don't know anything about her diagnosis, so I can't say. But I mean, actually, let me backtrack. If you want to make food your life and not do anything else, maybe you can make a difference, but then there's nothing else in your life. So, and I can't make that decision for people, but based on people who want to have a life outside of things that they eat, and for people who do decide that that's their life, no, the data doesn't support it.
Okay.
It can't heal. Can it make you, so there are some types of foods that cause or are related to increased risk. Are there foods that can't, no. Foods, well, let's just say if you have a deficiency of a nutrient, eating a food with that nutrient will help reverse the deficiency. If you're a diabetic, watching your carbohydrate intake can help control your blood sugars. If you're somebody who is so genetically predisposed and have high cholesterol, for some people, reducing their cholesterol intake or their saturated fat intake may help reduce their blood cholesterol and reduce risk of heart disease. So in that respect, but yeah.
Great.
Is sodium intake really that important to watch? It depends. There's no easy answers for these things. If you have kidney disease, if you have certain illnesses, you do need to watch your sodium intake. But I think the one thing that salt at least is related to is hypertension. Was it the current event in this class where somebody talked about the DASH diet and the Kardashians? Yeah, Marissa, was that your current event?
That was me, Prof.
Okay. Yeah, so it may not be that the people are getting too much sodium, but they're not getting enough of the other nutrients found in fruits and vegetables. As someone who likes seasoned food, will that have a negative long-term impact? I don't know. Should you avoid certain fruits based on the sugar content? No. There are fruits that are high in fructose and sucrose and a lot of the other nutrients. They're very nutrient dense. I'm not a fan of juice because you probably would drink more juice than the amount of fruit that it takes to make it. But unless you have a specific health condition, I would say no. All right. So I'm sort of running out of questions on that Padlet. So guys, I made this one just today. I don't know if it's gonna work. I made this Padlet. I posted it, I think under assignments, and it's a map, but if you click, if you click on it, if you open it up, like I'm asking you to post your questions where you're from or where you'd like to go. I posted two. I'm from Harrisburg. I tried to delete the other one. So if you click on the plus, you should be able to go anywhere on this map. And I want to know why people need cheat days. But if you want to add questions that you want me to go to after current events, it was just the thing I'm trying. If it works, great. If it doesn't, oops. So anyway, that's a place where you can start putting questions too that you'd like to have answered, since I didn't hand out index cards the first day of class. Oops. All right, so we've been talking about food allergies and food intolerances. This is a little bit of gluten humor. I've only been gluten-free for a week, but I'm really annoying. Free the gluten, does that mean you're a serial killer? Okay, well, I'm looking at the time, and I think what I'd like to do is come back to this, but I would like to break you into discussion groups. I'd like to go into breakout groups. I have these numbered 1 to 7. So I'm going to break the class into 7 groups. And I think I posted these, but I will, after I get you into breakout groups, I'll post this again. So when you go into your breakout group, you can pick your question and take about 10 minutes to discuss it, and then we'll get back together. All right, so let me stop sharing. Any questions before we do this? As usual, when you get into a group, I want you to have a spokesperson, somebody writing down the answers, and then somebody who's kind of leading the discussion. I don't know enough about your leadership style, so I trust you. Okay. All right, go to your rooms. And I will post the questions again, and I'm going to pause. So somebody remind me to record when we get back. Okay, so question 4, what are the steps involved in an allergic reaction?
Okay, so first step is obviously to eat the allergen or consume the thing that would give you the allergic reaction. And then your body will release an antibody called IgE, and that alerts the body of the foreign object. And the IgE then begins attacking and binding itself to the cell surface of the foreign object. And then if it, obviously, if it's enough of the foreign object, your body starts releasing histamine, which then slows all your the oxygen coming in.
Okay. So if this shows up, let's say in an exam situation, I know exactly what slide folks could go to, and that's fine, but you need to put this in your own words so that I need to know that you understand it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So group 1, what's the difference between lactose intolerance and milk allergy?
Okay, so we kind of discussed this earlier in class, but a lactose intolerance is caused by not having enough of the enzyme lactase, which is needed to break down lactose, which is the sugar found in milk and other dairy products. Whereas a milk allergy is a kind of a body's allergic response to the protein found in milk. And as Kyle just mentioned, kind of an immune response. But one thing that we discussed between lactose intolerance and milk allergy that are similar is that they oftentimes have similar symptoms, such as abdominal pain.
Okay, right, because allergies can have abdominal pain. I've had students in there when they've had lactose intolerance or milk allergies, their food issues say that the intolerance is not as bad as an allergy. But over time, if you are lactose intolerant and discomfort, I just don't like to, which is better, neither one. You don't want, tetanus or typhoid, you really don't want to have either one, but there are ways of dealing with it. Certainly in terms of acute responses versus chronic responses, the allergic response would be more acute for an allergy, but that doesn't make lactose intolerance any more preferable. Okay. Group 2, what are causes? Oh goodness, so I'm just repeating these. They made sense in my head when I was writing them down, but now that I'm looking at them. So tell me what causes the symptoms of lactose intolerance.
Yeah, so, cat's computer's playing me, but basically they can't digest, the GI symptoms resulting from it is that they can't digest the lactose with the available lactase that they already have, which then causes the symptoms like bloating and abdominal pain and like diarrhea due to like not being able to digest the lactose by the bacteria.
Okay, so by the bacteria or by the enzyme? What do you?
I don't know, I just did not mean to say that.
Now you sound like me. So what's happening is that, and Justin, this goes back to your question at the beginning, is that lactose, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about digestion, that which does not get digested and absorbed from the small intestine moves into the large intestine. I'm working on my video series for that now, stay tuned. Moves into the large intestine and it pulls water. So those symptoms of bloating and gas and discomfort is because that's moving, that's part of what's moving with the lactose through the large intestine or your colon. Now there are bacteria in the large intestine that may act on it, and the same with fiber, like you were asking, Justin, was that your question? So that's why some of those symptoms may be similar, but then that breaks it down, and that, as it works on that, may release gas as well. But it's the water being attracted to the lactose as it moves through the large intestine that creates discomfort. Okay, so, all right. Group 3, IgG and IgE. Do tell.
So we talked about how IgE was kind of like the type 1 allergy, and it's just true allergies that you can't like grow out of, and they're produced when you're having a food allergy. But the IgG antibodies, so they're antibodies that we all have, and they're found in our blood and body fluids, but it can take a while to form. So an example, like when you're getting a vaccine or when you have an infection, they can take a little bit to kick in. And if you have an IgG related food allergy, it can be delayed on, and like it can come randomly later on, but also it can be offset with a good steady diet. But IgE, you can't offset.
So IgE, the E, and this is cocktail chatter, and this is me bragging, stands for a type of white blood cell called eosinophil. And the eosinophils are a white blood cell evolved in allergic responses. So that's why this antibody is the IgE antibody that is specific for allergies. IgE is more broad spectrum. All right, IgE just means you've been exposed. It says nothing about the allergy. All right, so you could have high IgG levels and that means nothing except that you've eaten peanuts or you've eaten dairy or you've eaten wheat. So when you get, so people who are administering these bogus, unethical allergy tests are giving folks IgG results, and because they don't know the difference or what is being looked at, they think that they have allergies, and I'm gritting my teeth because of that. So yeah, for food allergies or any allergy, it's the IgE antibody. Okay. Why don't you, group 5, why don't you react the first time you're exposed to a food allergen?
So that was us, and you don't react because the antibody isn't formed yet. So antibodies are the proteins that are formed like when you're first exposed to the allergen, and so when it reappears, then your body starts to react to it.
Is that okay? I guess what I thought, I'm not sure that that's correct. I think the correct answer has to do with the fact that that the cell is primed the first time you're exposed. Okay. And what happens is that, and that's the true with any reaction, is that you have the antibodies are being formed and they go to the mast cells. All right. The antibodies are formed, the B cell is sensitized, and then, but maybe I'm not looking at the same thing you're looking at. Honestly, I need to go back and look at the slide. But then what happens is upon subsequent exposure, that secondary, oops, that's the next group. I think we'll wait and see. But what happens is then that the mast cells release the histamine upon subsequent exposure. But wait, those of you in group 6, what's the answer?
Okay, so the primary immune response is when the antigen first comes into contact with the immune system. And the secondary immune response is when the antigen comes in contact for the second, third, or fourth time.
Right. What's the relationship though? I'm, you know what, in my mind, I'm thinking about this, I showed you this, I have this slide that has the reactions of the pictures showing primary and secondary responses. Let me see if I can find it real quick, which of course I can't. No, I don't. Let me see, where is it? Oh, here it is. All right, let me share my screen because this is kind of something I want you to know. All right, so this is what I'm thinking about, is that the allergen enters the body. So it's the first time, let's say you've eaten a peanut and you don't experience that allergic response. But what happens is the B cell is what I call sensitized. It's like priming the pump. And the B cell does release those IgE antibodies to that specific antigen. And these IgEs go to the mast cells. The mast cells have these granules that contain histamine. And this is all part of the primary response, the first exposure. So you don't have a reaction. But what happens is your cells, these mast cells, have been primed by the antibodies. So antibodies are produced the first time. And then upon subsequent exposure, and I don't know when that is, it could be today. What happens is when you eat that, when that allergen goes into your body, since the mast cells are just waiting to respond, the histamine gets released. And that's the secondary response. You don't have a histamine reaction with the primary response. You have, does that make sense? All right, somebody tell me what I just said. Tell me the difference between primary and secondary response.
That in the primary response, you don't have any reaction or symptom, you just produce the antibodies that go into the mast cell. And then in the secondary, you already have the antibodies. So the antibodies start like fighting, and then it's when you have the reaction.
That's right. That's right. All right. So that's what happens with a food with an allergic response. Okay. Now, why somebody said earlier about growing out of allergies, that food allergies, I didn't know that adults could do that. I know that kids can do that, but I think that's great. So congratulations. And then last but not least, why does someone with celiac disease experience nutrient deficiencies? Group 7.
Because when you have celiac disease, what happens is that every time you eat gluten, your small intestine gets inflamed, and when it gets inflamed, the villi does not, as it's shown in the picture, the villi cannot, cannot retain the nutrients or the vitamin D. So, and it takes a while for the villi to regenerate.
Right. All right, and I'll show you that slide. So imagine these are normal cells, and these finger-like projections are called villi. And each one of these finger-like projections also has projections coming out of the side of each one. And the purpose of these villi and microvilli is if you spread them out side by side, if you will, it increases the surface area across which nutrients can be absorbed. So these villi and microvilli make the small intestine capable of absorbing lots and lots of nutrients. However, with celiac disease, when these villi are destroyed, if we look at this damaged cell, you can see that the surface area has decreased tremendously. And when you can't absorb nutrients over time, you can develop nutrient deficiencies.
Professor, I have a question.
Absolutely.
I have celiac disease, and I've always wondered this. When I was undiagnosed, like every time I would eat, I would be sick, obviously, because my villi were not working as they should have been. But now, like I've only eaten gluten a couple of times since I was diagnosed, and sometimes I do get like a severe reaction, and then other times I like think I might have eaten gluten at a restaurant or something, but I don't get a reaction. So my question is, how long does it take for the villi to regenerate? And if, because like for a person with celiac, 20 parts per million can cause damage, but how much of the villi has to be damaged to create a response like when they were actually damaged when I wasn't on the diet?
Okay, that's a good question. And remember, the information I give you is general. And we say that the cells in the stomach and in the mouth regenerate every 3 days. But if you've had severe damage, it can take longer. All right. And remember, though, that I'm talking about a bell curve. So I don't know where you fall on the bell curve. Yeah. But that's an average. And that's why for people with celiac disease, eliminating gluten allows those cells to regenerate. I don't understand personally, and I'm trying to get information, but my brain, I don't have the capacity, about gluten sensitivity. Because there's something, and I think we talked about it in this class briefly, called FODMAPs, that it's not the protein that's found in wheat, barley, and rye, because that's where gluten is. It's not just found in wheat, but that it's a carbohydrate that doesn't break down. And that's what causes the symptoms.
I have another question. So like when I got diagnosed, they said it was wheat, rye, oats, and barley. And now some dietitians are saying that oats are gluten-free. Right. It's just like the cross-contamination. Do you know like the up-to-date science on that?
That it's cross-contamination.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like on a similar vein, people who have peanut allergies, I don't know, why are they avoiding peanut oil? Because oil is all fat, but there's a risk. And for people who have peanut allergies, it can be so severe that consuming even the smallest amount can cause a reaction.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Wait, Professor,
yes,
question.
Yes, please.
Wait, so even if you buy oats from the store that say gluten-free, they're not?
They should be, because oats do not contain gluten. It's what they were packaged with.
So what I learned was that gluten-free oats, like certified gluten-free oats, are like grown in a field not by wheat. So like what makes oats not gluten-free is that they're grown together with wheat, but the actual oats aren't gluten-free.
Gotcha.
All right. I love this class. Any other questions? I think that's enough for today. So let's see what's going on. Today is Wednesday, right? Yes. I will try to put out a summary, post a summary within the next 24 hours, but I lie a lot. So definitely by the end of the week. I do want to try to make a video on green nutrition so that we can just go over your questions. Otherwise, I won't, and then we'll have like a PowerPoint discussion in class. I do have questions for you, though, that I want to ask you about. In this case, I'm talking about green in terms of sustainability. Though as a dietitian, sustainability means the ability to sustain a certain type of diet, and maybe we can talk about that as well. Does anybody have any questions before we go?
So should we do the weekly journal?
Yes.
Just keep adding to that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And if you want to just, on Canvas, you can submit it through Canvas. Does everybody know how to submit it through Canvas now? It's kind of weird because I can answer it I can do it with the app on my phone, which is really weird. But my Bentley students, I don't know where to tell them to put stuff. So they're just emailing me. So
it's just under the discussions, and then it's private weekly journal.
Yes. And I'm the only one that sees it except all my friends on Twitter. All three of them. No. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, it's a weekly journal. So, and you know, I just ask for feedback. I don't know. I apologize for not being clear on that or putting everything in one place. You can complain about that in the journal. It's okay. That's what that's there for. All right. Let me just one more. If you want feedback, ask me. You know, like say that you want feedback on any of your assignments. I know one of the things that we're supposed to try to do in this environment is have feedback and talk to, you know, try to communicate. But sometimes people don't need feedback, whether it's in a written or whatever. But if you do want feedback, let's say on your diet projects, let me know. If you want feedback on journals, if you're asking me a specific question, I will try to answer it. But otherwise, I might just say thank you or something. I don't have the ability to be doing that all the time because I want to watch television. It's a priority. All right? So just let me know. Okay. Bye now.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Kevin. Bye, Kevin. Hello, adults in the room, unless you've left or waiting for your bandwidth.
Hi, Leanne. No, this is Ted Gilsthorpe.
Hi, Ted.
Hi, Marcy had to leave. She has a medical appointment via telephone.
Yes, yes. Such
Anyway, and I've had a little trouble negotiating into the class through the Babson website, and I don't quite understand, but I'm going to spend some time doing that.
Yeah, I would call IT if you're having trouble getting in. That's
I am going to call IT because it wouldn't accept my password and whatnot for a while, and I suspect it must have something to do with all the files and all the stuff I have in my browsers.
Huh. Yeah. I don't.
Anyways, it's sort of like a food allergy.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, how was school today?
Wonderful. It's as Marcy and I were saying, for us, a good deal of this is really a review of what we know or what we've read about, but it's very helpful because it brings stuff to top of mind again, like lactose intolerance and whatnot.
Yeah.
And food allergies, particularly because Marcy has that very obscure food allergy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I should, well, no, I have to go get a new textbook.
Oh,
but
wow.
what this class has done for me, I hope this is doing it for the students too. It really piques my curiosity, so I want to go back and study the science, study the physiology and whatnot of what is actually going on with, for example, lactose intolerance. Because I don't have it, but Marcy had it somewhat, and it particularly, well, I've read the statistics, particularly as women age, and after menopause, the lactose intolerance actually increases. Do you have data that?
I've read that can happen. Yeah. Individual results may vary.
Yeah, it's so much of this. I realize so much of this quote unquote research is really anecdotal information. Because so little, this is why I'm particularly keen on public health. The kind of things that you're dealing with and you're talking about in the class, I think should be a matter of public health. I would think research dollars would be used a lot more efficiently to study some of these issues that apply to a large percentage of the population, rather than a very small percentage of the population with, I don't mean this pejoratively, but with designer allergies or designer diseases, that sort of thing.
Well, listen, I have to go.
Okay, I'll let you go. I mean, I could talk
you.
forever, and in the world of the future, maybe we can get together for lunch or something like that. But
very nice.
In the meantime, this is a terrific course. And you're doing a wonderful job of keeping, forgive me, I'll let you go.
No, if you're going to compliment me, I'll listen. I'll listen.
Well, no, it's positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
It's very helpful to help keep people focused on the issues that you consider important and want to address in the course.
Well, and I thank you. I mean, I want to let them out early because, you know, I'm giving them all these videos to watch, but I'm certainly not going to discourage folks from asking questions. That's for sure. Yeah. All right.
Great. Have a nice weekend. Thank you so much again.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.